Everybody has their own way of starting the morning, but when you've made it to 78, your choices are pretty slim. I'm up at 6 sharp every day, whether I feel like it or not. My old bones don't let me stay in bed any longer than that. First thing, I shuffle over to the window and look out toward the east side of the property. That's where Beatrice and I planted apple trees all those years ago. They're tall and wild now, stretching out like they've got no limit. Funny thing, trees just keep on growing as the years roll by, while I seem to be shrinking into myself. Name's Samuel Preston. I've spent my whole life here in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, living in the house I built with my own 2 hands more than 4 decades back. Used to be a tight-knit little neighborhood when we first settled in, but most of those folks either packed up or passed on. These days, I'm surrounded by younger families who nod politely when they see me, but they don't stick around to chat with the old man on the block. Being Saturday, I've got my routine, a short walk to the farmer's market, just 3 blocks down. That stroll is one of the few real pleasures I still look forward to. I tug on my worn flannel shirt, corduroy pants, and my beat-up baseball cap. Beatrice always said I looked like a stubborn schoolboy in that get-up. Maybe that's the very reason I still wear it. Makes me feel like I'm holding on to something. Before I step out, I glance at my phone. Nothing. No calls. No messages. My daughter, Clarissa, hasn't bothered in a couple of weeks. Doesn't surprise me anymore. Our last talk, like so many before it, ended with her scolding me. "You were always too busy for me, Daddy," she said. "Your company, your houses, your projects, everything mattered more than your family." I could have fired back that the company paid her way through college without a dime of debt, helped her buy her first car, even pitched in on her down payment. But experience has taught me that no one wins those arguments. Heading down Franklin Street, I spot George Miller trimming his picture-perfect lawn. He's about 65, which in my book makes him practically a kid. George is the only neighbor who still drops by for a cold beer and a baseball game now and then. "What's up, Samuel?" he hollers. "Not dead yet." I shoot back with my usual line, and we both laugh like we always do. The farmer's market is alive with noise and motion. I buy a few tomatoes from Leo, who's been tending them for 3 decades. They cost twice what the store charges, but they've got flavor. None of that bland, watery stuff you find under fluorescent lights. "How's Clarissa?" Leo asks while I'm picking out the ripest ones. "She's fine. Busy with work and the kids." I lie without thinking. It's easier than admitting that my only daughter blames me for every disappointment in her life and only comes around when she needs a favor. On the walk home, a twinge creeps into my left arm. Nothing major, I tell myself. Just old age catching up. Truth is, it's been happening more and more, but I'm too mule-headed to see a doctor. Doctors only take away the things that make life worth living and hand you pills that leave you feeling worse. The house greets me with its usual silence. 2 stories, for bedrooms. Far too much space for one man, but I can't let it go. Every nail, every beam carries a memory. I can still picture myself calculating the weight for the floors, laying stones for the fireplace Beatrice and I gathered by the riverbank. I remember Clarissa clutching the oak railings I carved as she learned to walk. After Beatrice passed 8 years ago, Clarissa begged me to sell the house and move into an assisted living place. "You need care, Dad. You'll have people your age around," she argued. But I knew better. What she really wanted was the money. Her husband, Jeremy, never could hold a steady job, and while Clarissa got my pride, she never got my head for business. I drop the tomatoes on the kitchen table and wander back to my office. It's a small room filled with papers, tools, and my old drafting table. Computers were never my friends, though I learned to tolerate them toward the end of my career. On the wall hangs a photo of me, Beatrice, and little Clarissa, 5 years old, standing in front of this very house when it was brand new. We're all smiling, and I swear that might have been the last real smile my daughter ever gave me. By high school, she had started pulling away, and by her 20s, she'd turned her childhood grievances into full-blown resentment, especially toward me. I never claimed to be the perfect father. The construction business was grueling, especially in the early days when we barely scraped by. I missed a few plays, skipped a couple parent-teacher meetings. But I always kept food on the table, always made sure Clarissa had what she needed, and plenty more. Beatrice understood that about me. She knew the work wasn't a way to run from my family, but a way to secure their future. Clarissa never saw it that way. All she noticed was an empty chair at dinner. From the closet, I pull out the folder with my will and other papers. After my last fight with Clarissa, I made some changes. Didn't cut her out completely. She's still my daughter, but I made sure most of it is protected from her husband's foolishness. I set up a trust for my grandkids, Mason and Sophia, so the money will go toward their schooling instead of disappearing into one of Jeremy's doomed business ventures. The house, though, was a different matter. After Clarissa started hinting that it might be smarter to sell and downsize, which really meant she wanted the cash, I took precautions. I've been in construction all my life, so I know a few tricks. Legally, no one can sell this place without me signing off, not even if Clarissa managed to get power of attorney. My old friend and lawyer, Marcus, helped me nail down the paperwork. Back in the kitchen, the pain in my arm flares again, sharper this time, with a wave of dizziness tagging along. I grab the door frame to steady myself. Maybe I ought to see a doctor. No, I tell myself, it's just exhaustion. I need rest. I fix myself a plain lunch, a turkey sandwich with a fresh slice of tomato. Then I sit down alone at the big oak table that once held a family of 3 and friends on holidays. Now it's just me and my thoughts keeping me company. After lunch, I try to bury myself in a book, but the words smear together until they don't make sense. The television isn't much better, just endless bad news or shows so dumb they make me feel dumber for watching. I shut it off and sit in the quiet, listening to the steady tick-tock of the clock on the mantel. Beatrice's parents gave us that clock as a wedding present, and somehow it's outlasted all of them. Then the phone rings, sharp, sudden, like it doesn't belong in the silence. I glance down and see Clarissa's name glowing on the screen. I hesitate before picking up, because with her, a call always means something's coming. "Hi, Daddy," she says in that careful tone she only uses when she needs a favor. "I'm fine," I answer right away. "What's wrong? What makes you think anything's wrong?" she tries, putting on a hurt act. It doesn't convince me for a second. "You can call your dad anytime," I say. "But you don't usually call." There's a pause, and I hear her sigh. "Okay, Dad, I need to talk to you about the house." There it is. The conversation I knew would come sooner or later. "What about the house?" I ask, though I already know where this is going. "It's too big for you. You're climbing those stairs all alone. At your age, it's dangerous." I'm 78, not 108. I can handle stairs just fine. "But think about the future," she presses. "If you sold the house now, while the market's high, you could buy something smaller and still have money left over for." "For what, Clarissa?" I cut her off. "For your husband's next brilliant idea?" Her voice sharpens. "Jeremy's just trying to take care of his family. Unlike some people, he's at least present in his kids' lives." That old wound again. She never lets it heal. I take a slow breath. "Clarissa, I'm not selling the house. I built it, and I'll live here until the day I die. That's the end of it." "You're so selfish. You always have been, and you always will be," she yells. "You only ever think about yourself." By now my head is pounding, and the room is tilting. "I have to go," I say, knowing something is wrong. "Sure, walk away just like you always do," she fires back, but her voice sounds faint, as though it's coming from a long way off. I try to stand, but my legs won't hold me. The phone slips from my hand. The last thing I hear is Clarissa shouting, "Daddy, Daddy, are you there?" And then, darkness. I come to lying on the living room floor, half my body refusing to listen to me. One thought rattles around in my head. If I die now, Clarissa gets the house, and I already know what she'll do with it. The next thing I'm aware of is the steady beeping of medical machines. Then the smell, sharp, sterile disinfectant. Hospitals always smell the same, no matter where you are. I open my eyes to pale green walls and try to piece together how I got here. A young nurse notices me stirring. She comes over with a smile. "Mr. Preston, you're awake. How do you feel?" I try to speak, but all that comes out is a garbled mumble. Panic squeezes my chest. My words won't form. "Don't worry," she says gently, propping up my pillow. "That's normal after a stroke. Speech often improves with time. Dr. Rivera will be in soon to explain." Stroke. The word clangs around in my head. I remember Clarissa on the phone, the spinning room, the weakness. Then nothing. "Your neighbor found you," the nurse adds, as if she knows what I'm thinking. "Mr. Miller stopped by to check on you. He said you hadn't returned his lawn mower. He found you on the floor. You're lucky he did. If not, things might have turned out much worse." George, my good neighbor. He'd always told me I ought to carry one of those emergency call buttons old folks wear. I guess now I have to admit he was right. We contacted your daughter, the nurse says. She'll be here as soon as she can. I shut my eyes. Our last conversation had been another fight about the house. I can't help but wonder if hearing I was dying brought her relief. Maybe she's already picturing how to redecorate, already counting the money she'll get from selling the place. When Dr. Rivera finally comes in, she's a short woman with sharp eyes and dark cropped hair. She runs through the usual checks, flashlight in the eyes, blood pressure cuff, questions I can't answer properly. Mr. Preston, you've had an ischemic stroke, she explains slowly, like I'm a child. That means a clot blocked blood flow to part of your brain. We performed thrombolysis, a procedure to dissolve it. You were fortunate to arrive in time. Her words sink in heavy. Fortunate. Doesn't feel that way. The right side of your body is temporarily paralyzed, and you have aphasia, a speech disorder. But with rehabilitation, there's a good chance for significant recovery. I try to nod, but even that feels like climbing a mountain. You need rest, she says. We'll begin rehab here in the hospital, then continue after you go home. She leaves me alone with my thoughts inside a body that only half obeys. Out the window, I can see a scrap of blue sky, the tops of trees shaking in the spring air. April, Beatrice's favorite month. She used to say April was when the earth wakes up, planning out her garden like it was a masterpiece. Beatrice, 8 years gone, and I still talk to her in my head. She'd probably scold me now, tell me I ignored all the warning signs. She was always better at minding health, hers and mine. Samuel, if I didn't drag you to the doctor, you'd have worked yourself into the grave long ago, she used to say. And she was right. Since she died, I'd only seen a doctor once, when a cough hung on for weeks and I started spitting up blood. Turned out to be pneumonia. Even then, I only went because George threatened to call an ambulance if I didn't. Time moves strangely in a hospital. Minutes drag like they'll never end, then hours collapse in a blink. I doze, wake, listen to the footsteps and voices in the hallway, then drift off again. Nurses come and go, checking vitals, sticking needles, spoon-feeding me like I'm an infant. It's humiliating, but I can't lift my own fork. By evening, I hear familiar footsteps in the hall, quick, determined, like someone late to a meeting. Clarissa. I'd know that stride anywhere. Daddy. She blurts as she bursts into the room. How are you feeling? I open my mouth to answer, but all that comes out is a hoarse jumble of sounds. Frustration hit me hard, the kind that twists in your gut. I felt like a useless old man, stuck in a bed, unable to even form proper words. The doctor says you'll get your speech back with time, Clarissa told me, sliding into the chair by my bed. Don't worry, I'll handle everything. Something in the way she said that made my skin crawl. Clarissa's version of handling things usually meant deciding for me without asking what I wanted. I spoke with Dr. Rivera, she continued. She said you'll need constant care once you're discharged. You can't go back home by yourself. I studied her face. On the surface, it looked calm and caring, but I knew her too well. There was no warmth in her eyes, Beatrice's eyes, the same brown shade. What I saw instead was calculation, a kind of business-like concern, with a thin streak of impatience running through it. I think we need to seriously consider a nursing home, she said matter-of-factly. They'll take good care of you. You won't have to worry about the cooking, the bills, or that big old house. I tried to protest, but all that came out was another garbled mumble. Clarissa reached over and patted my arm the way you soothe a cranky toddler. I know you want to come home, Dad, but let's be realistic. You're 78, you've had a stroke, and you can't live alone in a 2-story house anymore. I closed my eyes, feeling the anger pulse at my temples. Same old Clarissa, deciding how my life ought to be run. And behind it all, circling like a vulture, was the house. Always the house. I looked into some good options, she went on, digging in her purse until she pulled out glossy brochures. Here, look, this one's called Pine Hills. They've got a pool, a library, and it's not far from Jeremy and me. We could visit all the time. It took everything I had not to laugh out loud. They never visited me when I lived 15 minutes away. Why would they suddenly start now? Clarissa kept talking about the supposed comforts of nursing homes, but I tuned her out. My mind wandered back to when I first noticed that part of her, the need to control everything, to bend people to her will. She was 13 at the time. Beatrice and I were planning a family vacation, and I asked Clarissa where she'd like to go. Lake Lure, she said instantly. But we went there last year. I reminded her. Why not try something new? What about the mountains? No, she snapped. The lake's better. I can water ski there. There's nothing to do in the mountains. Your mom loves the mountains, I told her. And you've never tried hiking or climbing. Maybe you'd like it. I won't, she shot back. If we go to the mountains, I won't go at all. Beatrice tried to mediate, but Clarissa wouldn't budge. In the end, we went to the lake. The following year, same thing. It turned into a pattern. Clarissa decided what she wanted, and she got it, no matter what anyone else thought. By the time she was 16, her demands had only grown. All my friends are getting cars for their birthdays, she declared. I should get one too. We can help you buy a used car, I offered. But you'll need to work a summer job and save up half the cost. That's not fair, she snapped. Why should I work when you've got plenty of money? You're just greedy. It's not about money, Clarissa. I tried to explain. It's about responsibility. When you pay part of it yourself, you'll value the car more. You just don't love me, she yelled, slamming her bedroom door. In the end, Beatrice and I caved. We bought her a used Ford, no strings attached. 3 months later, she totaled it running a red light. Thankfully, she walked away without a scratch, but the car was scrap metal. Instead of owning up, she blamed the city for poor traffic management. Not a word of apology, not a hint she felt bad about the money wasted. Before long, she was dropping hints that she needed a replacement. You spoiled her, Beatrice said at the time. We both did. And maybe she was right. I'd worked so hard to give Clarissa everything I never had as a kid that I didn't see how it was warping her. My father was a plumber, my mother worked in a laundry. We didn't have much, but they taught me the worth of hard work. By 12, Dad had me carrying his tools to jobs, watching how pipes fit together. By 16, I could fix a leaky faucet or install a sink on my own. It was Dad who pushed me toward construction. Samuel, he'd say, it's always better to build something with your own hands than to get paid for sitting in some office. I listened. I went to technical college, studied engineering, paid for it by working on job sites. By my 3rd year, I'd met Beatrice, bright, steady Beatrice, who was studying accounting. We married the year after graduation. Those first years weren't easy. I was working for a small construction company, dreaming of starting my own. Beatrice backed me the whole way, even if it meant pinching pennies. By the time Clarissa was born, I was 32 and my business was just starting to breathe. That meant 12 to 14-hour days, weekends included. Looking back now, I realize how much I missed. Her first steps, her first words, her first day of school, all things I only knew through Beatrice's stories and the photos she kept. By the time my company finally stabilized, the damage was done. Clarissa was already a teenager, distant, resentful, living in a world where I wasn't invited. She spent her time with friends or glued to her phone. I tried to reconnect. I suggested family trips, tried showing interest in her hobbies, but she always brushed me off. You think you can buy my love? She sneered once when I offered to pay for an art camp. Where were you when I really needed a father? It stung, but it wasn't unfair. I couldn't rewind the clock, couldn't go back and do it differently. All I could do was try harder now. But Clarissa wasn't looking for reconciliation. She'd already chosen her part, victim of a loveless childhood, and she used that excuse to justify every poor choice. If I'd had a real father, I wouldn't have dated someone like Darren, she said after another breakup in college. And when she finally met Jeremy, I saw trouble right away. He was 8 years older, smooth-talking, always full of ideas. But I recognized that gleam in his eye, the same greed I'd seen in a dozen failed entrepreneurs. He's using you, I warned her after their 3rd date. You didn't even give him a chance, she shouted. You just don't want me to be happy. Jeremy figured me out quickly. He knew I didn't trust him, so he worked hard to drive a wedge deeper between Clarissa and me. And it worked. Clarissa married Jeremy just 6 months after meeting him. I paid for the whole wedding, lavish country club, all the trimmings, because that's what they insisted on. I'd suggested something simpler, but of course Jeremy was a man who thrived on spending other people's money. The first 5 years of their marriage were a blur of failed, brilliant business ideas that somehow always required my investment. Exotic fruit imports, shady cryptocurrency schemes, you name it. I lost track of how many checks I wrote. The only bright spot was when Mason and Sophia were born. My grandkids softened things between Clarissa and me, at least for a while. She let me see them, though every visit came with thinly veiled hints about their financial troubles. When Beatrice was diagnosed with cancer, I thought maybe it would bring Clarissa closer to us. I was wrong. She hardly visited her mother in the hospital. Always an excuse, too much work, the kids, a cold. And when Beatrice died, instead of grief pulling us together, the pressure ramped up. Clarissa and Jeremy pushed harder than ever. Sell the house, sell the business, liquidate everything, and move into a nursing home. It would be best for everyone, they said. That's when I knew I had to act. I'd been in construction too long not to recognize a threat when I saw one. Clarissa's resentment, mixed with Jeremy's greed, was a dangerous combination. I sold the company to an old partner I trusted. But instead of dumping the money in a regular account where they could circle it like sharks, I divided it up. Some went into trusts for Mason and Sophia, locked until they turned 25. The rest, I placed in carefully structured investments that would give me steady income without touching the principal. And the house. That was trickier, but I outsmarted them there too. With the help of Marcus, my attorney and friend since college, we got the house listed as a historic property through the local preservation fund. That meant it couldn't be sold or altered without the board's approval. And Marcus just so happened to be on that board. On top of that, I installed a high-end security system. Cameras with motion sensors that streamed footage not just to my home server, but to a secure cloud account only Marcus and I could access. Maybe it seemed paranoid, but I'd learned the hard way. Anticipate problems before they happen. And when it came to Clarissa, I was sure she wouldn't stop until she got what she thought was hers. Dad, are you listening to me? Her voice snapped me back to the hospital room. I opened my eyes. She was still beside me, brochures for nursing homes fanned out in her lap. I know you can't talk right now, but not if you understand me, she said. I gave a weak nod. Good. I'll come by tomorrow, and we'll go over options again. For now, just rest. She leaned down, kissed my forehead quickly, more out of duty than affection, and left. Her heels clicked against the linoleum as she walked away. I stared at the ceiling, uneasy. Something about her tone, her whole demeanor, gnawed at me. Not once had she asked about my health or my chances of recovery. The entire conversation circled back to the house and a nursing home. Then it struck me. She wasn't just waiting for me to sell. She was already plotting, and my sudden stroke had given her the perfect opening. I tried to reach for the nurse's call button with my right hand. Nothing. It still wouldn't respond. With my left, I fumbled around until I finally pressed it. A nurse appeared within a minute. What's wrong, Mr. Preston? Are you in pain? I shook my head, forcing soundless words past my lips. Do you need paper and pen? She guessed. I nodded. She brought a small notebook, and with my left hand I scrawled, "Call Marcus Sterling," and scribbled his number. Is that a relative? I shook my head and wrote lawyer. All right, I'll call him in the morning. I shook my head harder, underlining with shaky strokes. Now? Urgent. The nurse hesitated, but then nodded. Okay, I'll call now. But it's late. If he doesn't pick up, I'll leave a message. I let out a breath, a little more at ease. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe Clarissa truly was just concerned for me. But my instincts had rarely steered me wrong, and right now they screamed danger. And I'd learned to trust them. By day 3 in the hospital, things improved. In the morning, I wiggled the fingers of my right hand. Barely, but it was progress. My speech was coming back too. Slurred, broken, but at least I could get words out. Therapy, going well? I told Samantha, the young speech therapist who came twice a day. That's fantastic, Mr. Preston, she said with a wide smile. You're recovering faster than most patients. Keep this up, and soon you'll be almost back to normal. Around noon, Marcus arrived. Tall, lean, silver hair combed neatly back, posture straight as ever. He carried the kind of presence that made juries lean in and trust him instantly. Samuel, you old fox, he said, sliding into the chair by my bed. What did you get yourself into this time? Stroke. I managed to croak, forcing a half smile. Yeah, that's what the nurse told me, he said. Scared the hell out of me. Behind his thin-rimmed glasses, his sharp eyes scanned my face. She also said you insisted on seeing me urgently. What's going on? Clarissa House, I rasped. Marcus's brow furrowed. You think she's making a move? I nodded. Talking nursing home. He reached into his briefcase, pulled out a notebook and pen, and handed them to me. Here, write it down. With my shaky left hand, I scribbled, check house cameras. He nodded. Got it. You want me to review the footage? I nodded again. What about your files? Still in the office safe? I wrote yes. Key and book. Moby Dick. Marcus chuckled. Classic. All right. Don't worry. I'll check everything. If she's up to something, we'll know. He stayed a while, chatting about lighter things. His new car, his grandson heading to college, his wife finally retired, and pestering him about travel plans. When he left, I felt a weight lift. Marcus wasn't just my lawyer. He was one of the few friends I could count on. I trusted Marcus to handle things, and that gave me some peace. After lunch, the physical therapist came by, a lively woman with the energy of someone who clearly loved her job. She put me through a series of stretches and exercises that left me aching but hopeful. By the time dinner was over, I was worn out and drifted off almost immediately. I woke to the sound of my cell phone ringing on the nightstand. The nurse must have left it there earlier. When I glanced at the screen, I saw the name, Clarissa. I took a deep breath and answered. Daddy, is that you? Her voice was high, almost giddy. Yes, I said slowly, trying to make my words as clear as possible. Oh, you can talk already. That's wonderful, she exclaimed, but there wasn't an ounce of genuine joy in her tone. It was the nervous kind of excitement, the kind she used when she was covering something up. Daddy, I have incredible news. You're not going to believe this. I waited, silent. I'm getting married, she blurted out. You're already married, I said, confusion creeping into my voice. No, I mean Jeremy and I are renewing our vows. A second wedding, you know? We thought now would be the perfect time, while you're recovering. It'll motivate you to get better. I didn't respond. I could hear her nerves spilling into every rushed word. When Clarissa was lying, her voice always climbed higher, and she rattled on faster. Right now, she was practically babbling. And Daddy, this is going to surprise you. I sold your house. And your car. Even though I'd braced myself for something like this, the blood still surged hot through my face. What? I barked. Yes, I know it's sudden, she said quickly. But listen, it's for the best. The doctor said you can't live alone after a stroke. You need full-time care, and Pine Hills is perfect. I showed you the brochure, remember? But the down payment and monthly fees are steep. So, I acted fast. The housing market is hot right now. I got $850,000 for your place. That's way more than we expected. And your Cadillac, Dad, a collector bought it for $32,000. Can you believe it? My hand clenched so hard around the phone my knuckles went white. You have no right. I forced out, each word costing me effort. Dad, please, don't be upset, she cooed, her voice shifting into that syrupy tone she used when she wanted me to swallow a bitter pill. This is the smartest move. The money covers Pine Hills, and the rest is safe in a special account just for your needs. Everything is going to work out. Clarissa, I said, my breath shaky, you've made a fatal mistake. The line went silent. Then, cautiously, what do you mean? You have no right to sell my house, I said, slow and deliberate. It's not legal. Dad, don't be silly. I'm your daughter, your only family. Who else would handle your property while you're in this condition? A legal representative, I shot back. A trust. You've got nothing. Another pause. This one longer. Dad, listen, she said, her tone sharpening, almost threatening now. The buyer's already put down a deposit. The contracts are signed. You can't just undo it. I can, I told her. And I will. You don't understand, she nearly shouted. We already used some of the money. The down payment for Pine Hills is non-refundable. If you cancel the sale, we'll have to sue the buyers. It'll cost you a fortune, and the stress could trigger another stroke. Now she was trying to scare me. Classic Clarissa. If guilt didn't work, fear was next. I steadied my voice. There's one thing you didn't count on. What's that? She asked, irritation creeping in. Hidden cameras in the house, I said. Everything you've done is on record. There was a sharp inhale on the other end. You're bluffing, she snapped, but her voice trembled. There are no cameras. There are, I said firmly. In the anteroom, the study, my office, even the backyard. And all the footage is stored safely off-site. My lawyer already has access. I heard her swallow hard. You always hated that kind of thing, she muttered. Said it was an invasion of privacy. People change, I told her. Especially when their own children turn thief. I wasn't stealing, she gasped. I was trying to help. You can't live alone after a stroke. It's dangerous. It's not your choice. Then whose is it? Who's going to take care of you? Who's going to make sure you eat, take your medicine, stay alive? I'll hire help, I said flatly. With my money, not yours. Daddy, please. Her voice cracked, pleading now. We only did this for your own good. We? I asked. Jeremy, too? Her silence told me enough. Whose idea was it, Clarissa? Yours or his? It doesn't matter, she mumbled. We're a family. We make decisions together. Families don't steal from each other. Dad, listen. No, you listen. I cut her off. You've got one chance. Return the money. Undo it. Call it a mistake. That's impossible, she cried. We already spent some. On what? I pressed, though I already knew the answer. A pause. Then, softly, Jeremy had some debts. We paid those off. But it's temporary. We'll pay it all back once his new business takes off. I let out a bitter laugh. Another brilliant idea, huh? How many does that make now? 10? 15? All failures. This one's different, she said quickly, almost too quickly. He's importing eco-friendly building materials from Scandinavia. It's a growing market, Clarissa insisted. Jeremy already has suppliers lined up, and he's talking with local developers. In just a few months, we'll triple what we invested. Same old Jeremy. Big promises, zero knowledge, and no experience in the field he claimed to be an expert in. Classic. How much? I asked flatly. What? How much have you spent already? She hesitated before whispering. 100,000. The number hit me like a punch. 100,000. My money. Money they stole by selling my house out from under me. My own daughter. You have 3 days, I said, feeling the rage hammering in my temples. Get the money back. Cancel the sale. Or I go to the police. You wouldn't, she stammered. You wouldn't send your own daughter to prison. Try me. Daddy, think about the kids, Mason and Sophia. What happens to them if their mother goes to jail? Of course. Her final weapon. My grandchildren, the only living souls besides Beatrice I loved without condition. My gut twisted, but I didn't let it show. They'll be better off without a mother who teaches them how to lie and steal, I said coldly. You monster, she shrieked. You've always been one. All my life it's been about you, your money, your house. Never about me. Never about family. Same tired accusations, recycled for decades. 3 days, I repeated. Then I go to the law? Daddy, please, she begged, her voice breaking. We can't pull that kind of money back so fast. Give us a month. 3 days, I said again. My tone left no room for debate. And stay away from the buyers. My lawyer's already been in touch with them. It was a bluff. I had no idea if Marcus had reached out yet. But Clarissa didn't need to know that. That's impossible, she cried. Where would we even get 100,000 in 3 days? Sell your house, I said. Or Jeremy's car. The one I gave him for Christmas. You know we can't. We've got a mortgage, private school tuition. Not my problem. Fatigue was washing over me in heavy waves, but I held on. 3 days. Don't call until you're ready to return the money. Dad, wait, she pleaded. We can work something out, find a compromise. Compromise was possible before you sold my house behind my back, I said. Not now. But I'm your daughter, she cried. Your only daughter. You'd send me to prison over money? Not over money, I said. Over betrayal. Then I hung up. The phone lit up again almost immediately. I ignored it. By the third ring, it stopped. I leaned back against the pillows, my chest tight with a mix of fury, sorrow, and disbelief. My daughter, my flesh and blood. The last tie to Beatrice. Where had I gone wrong with her? Had I smothered her with too much? Or given her too little? Had I failed to teach her the simplest truth, that in life you earn, you don't just take? The phone rang again. This time it was Marcus. Samuel, he said, skipping any greeting. I've gone through the security footage. Clarissa brought people over, buyers, and some guy in a suit. Looked like a realtor or maybe a notary. I know, I said. She just called. Sold the house for $850,000. And the car. God damn it, Marcus swore. Without your consent, without power of attorney, that's fraud. Yeah, I muttered. I gave her 3 days to return the money and cancel the deal. After that, we go to the police. Marcus went quiet. Are you sure you want to go down this road, Samuel? She's your daughter. I'm sure, I said, my voice steady. She has to learn. Actions have consequences. All right, he sighed. I'll reach out to the buyers. Once they find out she had no legal right, they'll probably walk away. As for the car, same thing. I'll handle it. Thank you, I said. Rest. Get your strength back. I've got this. We ended the call. I set the phone on the nightstand and looked out the window. Dusk was settling in, another long, brutal day behind me. A nurse came in with my evening injection. She caught the look on my face. Rough day, Mr. Preston? Family problems, I said simply. She gave me a sympathetic nod. The hardest kind. But you're healing well. Dr. Rivera thinks you'll be discharged within a week if you keep progressing. I nodded, but my thoughts were far from my recovery. Would Clarissa cancel the deal? Or decide I'd been bluffing? At 78, I never imagined I'd be fighting my own daughter for the right to live in the house I built with my own hands. Life has a cruel sense of humor. As the sedative pulled me towards sleep, my last thought was of Beatrice. What would she say if she saw what our daughter had become? What advice would she give me? I didn't know, but I did know this. I would not let Clarissa strip me of the last piece of the life Beatrice and I had built, even if it meant sending my only daughter to prison. The next morning came clear and bright. Sunlight spilled across the floor, warm and golden. My head felt sharper. My words came easier. My right hand, though clumsy, was improving. At 10, a nurse appeared in the doorway. Mr. Preston, you have visitors. 2 men. One says he's your lawyer. Send them in, I said, sitting straighter against the pillows. Marcus entered first, sharp as always, leather briefcase in hand. Behind him came a stocky man in his 40s, wearing a dark blue suit and the posture of someone who'd spent years enforcing rules. Even without a badge, he looked like a cop. Samuel. Marcus greeted me, shaking my hand. This is Detective Harris, Fraud Squad. The detective stepped forward, gave a firm shake. Mr. Preston, glad to see you're on the mend. Mr. Holt briefed me on your case, Detective Harris said. I'll need to ask you a few questions. Go ahead. I motioned to the chairs beside the bed. They sat. Harris flipped open a small notebook. Mr. Preston, do you confirm that your daughter, Clarissa Coleman, sold your house and car without your consent or knowledge? Yes, I said firmly. She called me yesterday and presented it as a fait accompli. Did Miss Coleman have any legal authority to act on your behalf? Power of attorney, joint ownership, anything? No, never gave her power of attorney. Both the house and the car are in my name only. Harris scribbled, then asked, according to Mr. Holt, you have surveillance footage of Miss Coleman showing buyers around your property? I glanced at Marcus, who gave a small nod. Yes, I installed cameras. Marcus has already reviewed the recordings. I sent them over this morning, Marcus added. Harris nodded. Do you know who the buyers are? No. All Clarissa told me was the price. $850,000 for the house, $32,000 for the car. No names, no details. Understood. He made another note. Do you know where the money is now? I let out a long breath. She admitted to spending $100,000 already, some of it to cover Jeremy's debts, the rest for another one of his so-called business ventures. The balance, I assume, is still in their hands. Harris's eyebrows went up. So not only did she illegally sell your assets, she's already burned through part of the proceeds. Exactly. The detective closed his notebook with a soft snap. Mr. Preston, based on what we have, your statement, the video evidence, we have grounds to charge your daughter with fraud and misappropriation. These are felonies. She could face prison. Are you certain you want to move forward? My chest tightened. It was one thing to threaten Clarissa with the law. Another thing entirely to actually unleash it on her. Mr. Holt mentioned you gave her 3 days to fix this, Harris continued. Is that right? Yes. Yesterday I told her, return the money, cancel the deals, and I'd hold off. But truthfully, I don't think she can or will. We've already contacted the buyers, Marcus cut in. The Bennett family. They were shocked when I explained Clarissa had no right to sell. They're willing to cancel, but they want their deposit back, $120,000. And the car? I asked. Collector out of Riley. Same story. He'll return it, but wants his $32,000 refunded. I nodded. Makes sense. If Clarissa and Jeremy had already blown $100,000, that left them scrambling. Harris slipped his notebook into his jacket. Here's what I propose. We'll prepare the charges, but wait out the 3 days. If your daughter returns the money and cancels the deals, you can choose not to proceed. If she doesn't, we move forward. Fair enough, I said. But I want it clear, I'm not bluffing. If she fails, I'll take this all the way. Understood. Harris stood, buttoning his coat. We'll keep you informed. Get well soon, Mr. Preston. After he left, Marcus stayed behind. His expression was heavy. Samuel, are you really ready to send Clarissa to prison? I stared out the window for a long time before answering. When Beatrice was dying, she made me promise to take care of our girl. I've tried. I've paid for her house, her kids' schooling. Every time she needed money, I gave it. And what do I get back? A daughter waiting for me to die. And when that's not quick enough, trying to steal everything I own. Marcus said nothing. Maybe I was a bad father, I admitted. Maybe I worked too much, missed too much. But that doesn't excuse betrayal. Sometimes the best way to protect someone is to let them face the consequences. He sighed. Prison could destroy her life. And she didn't hesitate to destroy mine. I snapped. That house, Beatrice's house, everything we built together. She would have erased it without a second thought. Marcus raised his hands in surrender. I just want to be sure you know what you're doing. I do, I said. She still has a chance. If she makes it right, good. If not, she'll face what she brought on herself. That evening, George, my neighbor, dropped by with a fruit basket. He looked uneasy. Samuel, I saw people hauling things out of your house. One of them was the clock on your mantle, the wedding gift from Beatrice's parents. My stomach dropped. I called Marcus immediately. He promised to check the pawn shops and antique dealers in town. Later, Clarissa phoned. Panic sharpened her voice. Daddy, the police came. They're asking about the sale, about the house. What did you do? I warned you, I said calmly. Cancel the deal. Return the money. Or the police will. But they said I could face fraud charges, she cried. That's a felony. Yes, and that's exactly what you committed. Her tone turned wild. Threats, pleas, accusations, guilt trips, even dragging the grandchildren into it. I held firm. You've got 2 days left, Clarissa. Fix it, or face the consequences. Jeremy called me next, trying to strike a bargain. He even floated the idea of selling their own house to come up with the money for the buyers. But when I brought up the missing items from my place, especially the watch, he sounded honestly thrown off. I didn't know anything about that, he muttered. Clarissa told me she was just going to grab some photos and a few of her personal belongings. The following morning, Marcus showed up with news I wasn't ready for. He'd tracked down my watch in an antique shop. Clarissa had sold it for $8,000. As if that wasn't enough, she'd also pulled $200,000 out of their joint account. Samuel, Marcus said carefully, I hate to say this, but there's a real chance Clarissa is planning to run. That same afternoon, Detective Harris confirmed they were moving forward with a full investigation. They fingerprinted Clarissa, took her mugshots, and opened a police file. She was allowed to walk for now, but Harris made it clear, if she didn't pay the money back and unwind those deals within the deadline, the next steps would be charges for fraud, theft, and misappropriation of property. That night, Clarissa showed up at the hospital. She looked pale, her eyes red and puffy. She sank into the chair by my bed. Daddy, you can't do this, she pleaded. It'll destroy me. Think about the kids. You should have thought about your kids before you broke the law, I told her. Her voice trembled. I never meant to hurt you. I don't know what I was thinking. Jeremy said it was the chance we'd been waiting for, that we could finally pay off the debts, that you couldn't live alone after your stroke anyway. And so your answer was to sell my house right out from under me? I asked, shaking my head. You never listen, she snapped. You've always done things your way, just like you're doing now. I gave her a bitter grin. We sat there, staring at each other. Two hard-headed Prestons, neither willing to give an inch. What do you want from me? She asked finally. I want every cent back. I want the deals canceled. And I want every single thing you took out of my house returned, including that watch. I can't, she whispered. The money's gone. Most of it's already spent or tied up in Jeremy's business. And the watch, it's already been sold to a collector. I closed my eyes, my chest tightening. That watch wasn't just a trinket. It was part of Beatrice, part of me. Now it belonged to a stranger. Then I can't help you, I said flatly. Consequences exist for a reason, Clarissa. They don't disappear just because you're scared. Her voice dropped to almost nothing. Are you really going to let your own daughter go to prison? I looked her square in the eyes. No, I'm not sending you anywhere. You're the one putting yourself there. Every choice you made brought you to this. She stood up, tears spilling down her cheeks. You never loved me. You cared more about work, money, the house, everything except me. That's not true, I said quietly. I've loved you more than anything. I still do. But real love doesn't mean letting you destroy everything I've built and walk away without consequence. Goodbye, Daddy, she whispered, and left without once looking back. I knew right then that I might never see her again, at least not outside of a prison. The thought cut deep, but I was resolved. Sometimes love isn't protecting someone from pain. It's letting them face the weight of what they've done, even when it hurts like hell. Friday came bright and warm, the day I was finally being discharged. Dr. Rivera gave me one last round of checks, smiling when I lifted my right arm without strain and answered her question smoothly. Mr. Preston, you're recovering faster than expected, she said, jotting notes on my chart. But you still have a long road ahead. Keep up with your speech therapy twice a week and physical therapy 3 times a week. And as we discussed, don't try living alone just yet. I've already arranged for a nurse, I told her. She'll cover the days. George has agreed to stay overnight, at least for a while. She nodded approvingly. Good. I'll get your prescriptions and referrals written up. See me again in 2 weeks. George pulled up around noon in his old Ford, met me at the entrance, and helped me into the passenger seat before stowing my wheelchair in the trunk. The doctors wanted me using it for the time being, even though I could walk short distances. How does it feel to rejoin the land of the living? George asked with a grin as we pulled out of the hospital lot. Strange, I admitted. Feels like I've been gone for months, not just days. We drove through Chapel Hill, past the college with its old stone buildings, the coffee shops crammed with students, the park where Beatrice and I used to stroll on weekends. Life in town kept moving, oblivious to the storm tearing through my family. Have you heard from Marcus? I asked, watching the streets roll by. George hesitated. Yeah. He called this morning. Wanted to come to the hospital, but I told him I was already on my way to pick you up. He's waiting for us at your place. There was something in his tone that unsettled me. Something wrong. I think it's better if Marcus explains, George said carefully. I let it drop. When we pulled up to my house, my heart sank. Marcus's car was there, and right beside it sat a police cruiser. Something was definitely wrong. Marcus and Detective Harris were standing on the porch, both of them grim-faced. Samuel, Marcus said, hurrying over to help me out of the car and into the chair. Good to have you home. What happened? I asked immediately, skipping the small talk. They traded a glance. Let's go inside, Harris said. The house greeted me like a museum frozen in time. Everything sat exactly as I'd left it. The coffee table clutter, the open book draped over the chair arm. Except for one glaring absence. The mantelpiece was bare. The clock was gone. We gathered in the living room. George poured coffee while I sat waiting, nerves tight. Marcus finally broke the silence. Samuel, we've got a problem. The words hit me like ice water. What do you mean gone? I asked, feeling a chill creep down my spine. She didn't show up for her appointment at the station yesterday, Detective Harris explained. We sent a patrol to her house, but the place was empty. Neighbors said they saw her and her husband loading suitcases into the car 2 days ago. They claimed they were heading to a relative's for the weekend. My stomach tightened. And the kids? Were the kids with them? Yes, Harris confirmed. We checked. They didn't go to school Thursday or Friday. Marcus spoke next. We also learned Clarissa closed out every bank account she had and pulled the cash. On top of that, she sold her car through some online classified site. The buyer says he paid in cash. I leaned back in my chair, trying to wrap my head around it. Clarissa was gone, along with my money, my grandchildren, maybe for good. We've put out an APB, Harris said. But if they've crossed state lines, or worse, left the country, it'll be a lot harder to track them. The thought made my chest seize. You think they might have gone overseas? It's possible, Harris admitted. We haven't found any airline tickets in their names, but they could have used a private carrier or driven across the border into Mexico. I shut my eyes, torn between anger, so hot it burned, and sorrow, so heavy it nearly crushed me. Half of me wanted to shout. The other half, the father half, was terrified for Clarissa and those kids. What happens now? I asked. We'll keep looking, Harris said, his tone steady. But I've got to be honest. If they plan this out well, it might take time to catch them. I forced myself to think about practical things. What about the house? And the car? Marcus jumped in. The good news is the house deal never closed. The Bennetts agreed to walk away once they learned what was going on. They're out the deposit, but they understand it's not your fault. I want to meet them, I said firmly. and I want to give them back their money. Samuel, you don't have to do that, Marcus objected. It was Clarissa's responsibility. I know, I said, shaking my head. But she took my money and ran. The least I can do is make sure innocent people aren't left paying the price. Marcus saw there was no point arguing. All right, I'll arrange it. And the Cadillac? I asked. That's trickier, Marcus admitted. The buyer already sold it to another collector in California. You could take it to court, but it would drag on. I let out a long breath. That car meant something to me, but compared to everything else, it barely mattered now. We'll deal with it later. What about the other things she stole from the house? Marcus's face brightened. We managed to recover the watch. The antique shop bought it back from the collector. A knot in my chest loosened. Thank you, Marcus. That watch, that means more than I can say. After Harris left, Marcus stayed behind to go over next steps. We agreed he'd start the legal process to revoke any powers of attorney Clarissa might try to use against me later. And I think it's time you changed your will, Marcus said carefully. Given the circumstances. I sat with that thought for a moment. It stung, but I knew he was right. Yes, but I want to make sure my grandchildren still get something. They're not to blame for what their mother did. We could create a trust fund, Marcus suggested. One they can only access at a certain age, with an independent trustee. That way Clarissa won't have her hands on it. That's the right move, I agreed. George, who'd been sitting quietly the whole time, finally spoke up. Samuel, I know this is the worst time to hear it, but I need to say it. You're not alone. You've got people who care about you. Me, Marcus, and plenty of others. We'll help you through this. I looked at those two men, my lawyer and my neighbor. In that moment, they felt closer than my own daughter. Loss stung bitter, but gratitude softened it. Thank you, both of you. I don't know what I'd do without you. The days that followed blurred with doctor appointments, speech and physical therapy, and meetings with lawyers and police. My body healed faster than anyone predicted, but the wounds in my heart lagged behind. Every night, I'd sit in my chair staring at the clock back on the mantel, thinking about Clarissa, about my grandkids, wondering if I'd ever see them again. On the third day home, Marcus brought the Bennetts over, a young couple with 2 little girls. They looked uneasy walking into my house, and I tried to put them at ease. Mr. and Mrs. Bennett, I'm terribly sorry about all this, I said once we were settled in the living room. My daughter acted without my knowledge or consent. We understand, Mr. Preston, James Bennett replied, about 35, with an open, honest face. Detective Harris explained everything. We're sorry you're going through this. We just wanted a safe home for our girls. His wife Emily, holding their youngest daughter close, added, We really loved your house, but we don't want any trouble. I looked at their children, one with golden hair, maybe 8 years old, the other just a toddler, and my chest ached with the reminder of my own grandchildren. I want to return your deposit, I said, pulling out the checkbook I'd already prepared. $120,000. You shouldn't suffer because of what my daughter did. James blinked in surprise. Mr. Preston, you don't need to do that. Legally, it's not your responsibility. I know, I said with a nod. But it's the right thing to do, and it'll help me sleep at night knowing I made it right. I wrote the check and handed it over. James accepted it, still looking uncertain. I don't know what to say. That's incredibly generous. Tell me, I asked, struck by an idea. Are you still searching for a house? Yes, Emily answered quickly. But there aren't many in our price range right now. I exchanged a look with Marcus, and he gave a faint nod, as if he understood the idea forming in my mind. What if, I paused, searching for the right words. What if I sold you the house, properly, legally, at a fair price? The Bennetts blinked, caught off guard. We thought you didn't want to sell, James said cautiously. I didn't. When Clarissa tried to force my hand, I admitted. But looking at your family now, this house is too big for a lonely old man. There should be laughter here, life, like when Beatrice was alive and Clarissa was a child. Emily's eyes widened, a glimmer of hope shining through. I'm sure, I said firmly. Of course, it'll take me a little time to pack and settle the logistics. But if you're willing to wait a couple of months, the house can be yours. James and Emily exchanged a glance, silently consulting each other. We'd be delighted, Mr. Preston, James said finally. But only if it's truly what you want. I do, I said. And for the first time in years, I felt a calm certainty in my decision. Marcus would handle the legal work, this time ensuring nothing could go wrong. After the Bennetts left, Marcus turned to me, a trace of surprise in his expression. Are you sure, Samuel? I thought you'd never want to part with this house. I thought so too, I admitted. But recent events have made me rethink a lot. This house holds countless memories, some joyful, some painful. Perhaps it's time to make space for new memories in a new place. And where will that be? He asked. I looked out the window, letting my mind wander. A little cottage by the lake. Remember our fishing trip last summer? That neighborhood, it's quiet, peaceful, close to nature. Marcus smiled faintly. Good choice. I'll help you find the right one. Over the next month, I gradually regained strength while rebuilding my life. I met with realtors, visited houses, and sorted through my belongings, deciding what to bring into my new chapter and what to leave behind. Clarissa's silence continued. The police searched, but found nothing. Marcus even hired a private investigator, who warned they might have fled to Mexico, or even further, to Central or South America. I often thought of my grandchildren and hoped, at the very least, they were being cared for. One morning, a plain envelope arrived in the mail. No return address. Inside was a postcard of a tropical beach with a brief note. We're fine. The kids miss you. L. I stared at the card for a long moment. No apology. No explanation. Just the barest reassurance that they were alive. Part of me wanted to be grateful. Another part burned with frustration. By late June, I found the perfect place, a cozy lakeside cottage about an hour from Chapel Hill. A wraparound porch overlooked the water. There was a private dock for a boat I planned to buy, and a garden for tomatoes and other vegetables. The deal with the Bennetts was finalized in mid-July. They paid a fair price, slightly below market, but that was my choice. I wanted a family to live there, filling it with laughter once more. Moving day arrived. As the last boxes were loaded onto the truck, I walked through the empty rooms, saying silent goodbyes. Every corner held memories. Clarissa's birth, her first steps, school holidays, quiet evenings with Beatrice by the fireplace, the painful final days of my wife's life. Each room, each memory, I left behind. The study was my final stop. Behind the bookshelf, the small safe held my new will. Marcus had insisted on keeping a copy in the house, in case Clarissa ever returned. The will was simple. The lake house and any remaining assets went into a trust for my grandchildren. Mason and Sophia could access the funds at 25, with Marcus and his son as trustees. Clarissa received nothing. Harsh, perhaps, but fair. She had already taken what she chose through theft. I closed the safe, glanced around one last time, and stepped out resolutely. George waited in the driveway. Everything okay? He asked, seeing the expression on my face. Yeah, I replied, though I wondered if it was entirely true. Everything's fine. We drove past familiar streets, markets where I bought tomatoes, parks where Beatrice and I walked, schools Clarissa once attended. The town remained the same, but I was leaving it as a changed man. The drive to the lake took just over an hour. As we arrived, the sun was lowering, painting the water in gold. The cottage was small, simple, but filled with light. A veranda wrapped around three sides, offering views of the lake at any hour. I had chosen modest, functional furniture, nothing to tie me to the past. Marcus arrived later, helping finalize the move. When the movers left, he pulled a bottle of good whiskey and 3 glasses from his briefcase. To new beginnings, he said, pouring the amber liquid. To new beginnings, George and I echoed. We sat on the veranda, watching the sunset over the lake. Peace settled over me in a way it hadn't for years. Yes, I had lost my daughter. Yes, I might never see my grandchildren again. Yes, the past months had been the hardest of my life, but I had survived. I had moved forward. Beatrice always said life doesn't end until you decide it's over, I said, watching the water darken. Marcus nodded. A wise woman, you're Beatrice. Yes, I smiled, thinking of her. And I think she'd be proud of this new beginning. I imagined fishing trips on the lake, visits from new neighbors, books I'd finally read, trips long postponed. Life wasn't ending. It was simply taking a new form. In this form, there was no room for betrayal, lies, or toxicity. Only honesty, friendship, and peace I had earned. I took a sip of whiskey, letting the warmth seep through me. Sometimes, loss teaches us what's truly important. For me, it wasn't walls, possessions, or even family ties built on falsehoods. It was integrity, dignity, and the courage to begin again. At 78, I looked out at the first stars appearing over the lake and realized I had made the right choice. My life wasn't over. It had just begun.